everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today. I know you will be so glad that you did. We have a wonderful speaker with a wonderful presentation, and I'm so happy that you can be a part of that. My name is Rita Wolfson. I am the founder of Financial Social Work. With us today is Linda Benjamin, our relationship manager, and Olga Potanin, and she is all things tech, and we couldn't do any of this without these two women. And most importantly, okay, if the slide, which here we go, is our just wonderful speaker, and she will tell you more about herself when I turn the training over to her. If you were with us last August, you heard her speak then. She is the first person, I do believe, that we've ever asked to come back again, just because her training was so very popular, as was the registration for today. So I want to welcome everyone personally and professionally. For me, financial social work is about making sure that our colleagues, our students, and our graduates have the skills, tools, and knowledge to improve their own financial futures, as well as professionally to add new tools to your client toolbox. And you will have many after today. You can check the chat box for any messages. The most popular question is, can we have your slides? And we don't share slides. They are proprietary. They take months, days, weeks, hours, years to prepare. The website will be up. The recording will be up on our website, Facebook page, YouTube channel within a day or so. The recording will also be mailed to you. If you have questions, feel free to type them in the question box. We will answer as many as possible, as time permits. There are no CEs, just terrific content for your attendance today. I like to begin by asking everyone to center yourself. Take a few deep breaths in and exhale slowly, because when we talk about money, it brings up many different thoughts, feelings, attitudes, beliefs, concerns, hopes, and dreams. And it helps to be more centered when we do that. I start with our financial social work affirmation because I believe that it is a pretty special summary of the work I've created over the past 26 years. So just for today, I will love myself enough to face my fears, practice self-acceptance, and embrace hope. Just for today, I will silence my inner critic, speak my truth, and make peace with myself and with my past. I will give myself permission to eliminate toxic people, beliefs, and behaviors from my life. And just for today, I will prepare for a better tomorrow by healing my relationship with my money and with myself today. So this is a little exercise that we've been starting our monthly free webinars with, when I ask you what this picture makes you think of. So go ahead and share your thoughts in the question box, and Linda Benjamin will share them with the group. We're just going to spend about a minute or two because we have lots more to cover. But it is always so interesting to get your reactions. How are we doing?
And Crystal says financial stress. Sarah says anxiety. Elaine is happy that she has $100. Sarah is Inflation, financial freedom. Inflation, this makes me laugh. It reminds me of the toys with the eyes you can move. Doesn't make me think of money at all. Money for a trip, problem. How can I flip it? Nerves. I feel desire and disappointment, resources. And Kate is thinking about the things she can do with this $100. Oh, that's Sherry. Lisa's, Melissa is second guessing her purchases. Miguel says ambiguity and possibilities, resources, nerves, housing inflation, my last $100, anxiety. How will I make this stretch? Thank you, Erin.
All good answers, and all just to open up with some different thoughts, with you participating as much as us. I'm just going to tell you a little about financial social work, because with so many registrants today, we know that not all of you are familiar with that work. We know that no one chooses to have money problems, but that most people do. And that is a problem for all of us. So that's where financial social work comes in. It is the intersection of social work, politics, the economy, gender, economic, and social justice, and all in equity. That's where it all comes together. It is a behavioral model. Financial behavior is what it's all about, because until and unless behavior changes, nothing changes. It's heavily psychosocial. It explores the financial thoughts, feelings, attitudes, beliefs, experiences, and values that drive financial behavior. And that's how we earn, spend, save, share, and borrow. It is all of these things. It's supportive, engaging, educational, motivational, strengths-based, holistic, multidisciplinary. There's a lot we can say about financial social work. And one of the most important pieces is that it is heart-centered. It approaches money and life from a perspective of healing, acceptance, courage, wellness, and honesty. The core of my work is about recognizing and taking ownership of our own financial health. And that's about the relationship we each have with money. And on certain trainings, when we're not just trying to give you a lot of new content, we talk more about relationship with money and relationship with self, which is about self-discovery, self-care, self-healing. Because if you don't feel good about yourself, if you feel hopeless or helpless, you're not about to take on make the effort to do better with your money. So we have graduates across this country and in many other countries. We've been doing this for 26 years, and we will tell you more about that after Dr. Hardy's presentation. But here you go. Veronica, you going to take it away?
Yes, I will. I just switched to organizer, and hopefully everyone can see my screen now.
We can, and it's beautiful.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you, Rita, for the introduction and inviting me back. It's truly an honor to be here to share this part two. And I also want to acknowledge Linda. Everyone heard her voice just a little bit earlier, but she will also be supporting me a little later during certain parts of this presentation. So, and just thank you everyone for joining us for this part two of the intersection of race-based trauma and financial literacy. So here, to help frame the content that will be delivered via this webinar, here's our overview for today. We'll have the opportunity to explore several concepts, but through the lens of a historical figure. Therefore, through that lens, we'll be able to gain wealth building lessons, including developing a personal financial well-being framework, identifying skills to promote mental and financial health, as well as building financial empowerment programs to promote social justice. And then, as I wrap up, I would like to share a little bit about my own walk of how I have been applying my own financial literacy skills as a tool for social justice. Okay. So here we definitely enjoy doing polls, and I really wanted to open up with this very first poll question. Okay, so hopefully you can all see it on your screen, and I'll just share what it says. It states, is the information today more for you or someone you know, and to please select one of the following. It's more for me. I want to enhance my knowledge in this area. It's more for someone I know. I think this information may benefit them, or a little bit of both for me and someone I know. So please feel welcome to just take a few seconds. I see it's filling in pretty quickly. I'll wait just a couple more seconds and then we'll close the poll and view the results. Okay, so now you should see where we're sharing the results. I see about 34%, it's more for me, 11%, it's more for someone I know, and then 55%, great, a little bit of both for me and someone I know. Again, thank you everyone for participating in that poll. So I'm just going to switch us back to the PowerPoint screen and move us to the next slide. So as we transition through this presentation today, there are several keywords that you will hear me state. So I just wanted to use these next few slides to go over a few definitions for those keywords. So the first keyword is social justice. And when we think of social justice, that primarily means a focus on equity, equitable distribution of wealth, opportunity, and privileges in society. So as many of you know, according to our National Association of Social Workers, NASW Code of Ethics, social justice is a core value. And as social workers, we are to participate in the development and the implementation of policies and practices that empower and advocate for populations identified as marginalized, historically marginalized, and oppressed. So in other words, we are to identify root causes of social injustices, identify what maintains and sustains those social injustices, and then create actions to confront the injustices and promote equity, right? So a couple more definitions. Financial literacy, the first definition on this screen, refers to the knowledge, the skills, and the tools used to equip people to make financial decisions, to develop goals, and to create action steps that will enable them to move towards their vision of financial success. And then we have financial education. And when we think of financial education, let's think of process. What is the process through which a person gains the knowledge, the skills, and the tools to move towards their financial goals? So there are multiple ways that this process can take place, including counseling, coaching, and even self-study or personal classes. Okay. Transitioning into our last three definitions. There's financial well-being, personal financial well-being framework, and then financial empowerment. So let's start with defining financial well-being. That refers to a person's ability to meet their financial goals and intentions both currently, in the here and now, and in the future. So really looking forward when planning those financial goals and planning them to a point where you can feel a sense of security and a sense of safety with your finances, being able to respond when there are unexpected financial challenges and financial emergencies that occur. Following that, a personal financial well-being framework is the structure that you put into place, right? Such as your personal policies, your steps, or your boundaries that you put around your financial practices. And those steps, those boundaries, those policies that you put into place help to sustain your financial well-being. And then our last key term is financial empowerment. This refers to confidence and ability. And it's not just for individuals. Financial empowerment can refer to communities, it can refer to organizations, to be able to make positive decisions that will enhance your financial future. Now, you may see to the left of the screen an image labeled as Figure 2, and it's titled, What Influences Financial Well-Being? I obtained this image from, you can see the resource at the bottom of the screen, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And what you'll see in this image is that there are several elements noted, starting from the left, understanding the social and economic environment. So in other words, what is your contextual environment? What is impacting your financial situation? Are there specific systemic or discriminatory barriers? Are there sources of opportunity available? So overall, assessing your immediate context. Next, as we move to the right, our personality and our attitudes towards finances can also affect our financial well-being. So it is important to assess, and this connects to what Rita was saying earlier too, how you feel, how you think, and how you act in relation to finances. What are some of your financial behaviors, and how might they impact your life and your current financial well-being? Now, next, it's also important to assess your decision context. How do you present your financial decisions? What actions do you take? And this connects again to financial behaviors. Then, what is your knowledge and skills in relation to financial education? What do you know, and what do you know how to do? And then at the bottom of this little table, it says it's important to explore your available opportunities. Okay. Opportunities can be in reference to investments, savings, creation of an entrepreneurship opportunity. The idea of opportunities can vary based on the individual and their environmental context. So all of this can result or impact the development of personal financial well-being. So next, ask yourself, how satisfied are you with your current financial situation? For example, if you are a supervisor or manager, how satisfied are you with the current financial situation at your organization or agency? How satisfied are you with your current financial situation if you are an entrepreneur? And then let's think about what types of changes can be made to your personal financial well-being framework to enhance your situation. So just to reflect on part one for a moment, the part one webinar. During part one of the intersection of race-based trauma and financial literacy, we discussed historical mediators of financial disparities. So historical mediators refer to forms of oppression that contributed to both race-based trauma as well as social injustices that created inequity in the ability to build wealth amongst African American and many other diverse populations. In addition, during part one, we transitioned through a brief history of various types of mediating factors. Now, when you look at this screen, this is definitely not an exhaustive list, but this includes a few of those that were discussed during part one. And you will notice that elements of several of these are still taking place in current day society. So let's start at the top. Enslavement economics, referred to as slavery during historical periods and currently referred to as human trafficking, affected the African American population's ability to build wealth. And then educational disparities contributes to the poverty cycle. And it's well known that educational disparities can affect a person's opportunities across the lifespan. When I say opportunities, that can mean access to higher education, access to various career opportunities, which in turn can affect the geographic living location choices, and access to appropriate medical facilities, healthy grocery stores and food selections, and even recreation facilities to promote health. All of these are important for the advancement and enhancement of individuals across the lifespan. And that also connects to the discriminatory results of oppressive real estate practices, which you can also see that listed on the screen, where African American populations were not awarded loans to live in certain areas, which many of you may be aware of the term redlining in reference to this, as well as discriminatory banking practices. And one example that we discussed during part one was the Freedmen's Savings Bank. And I truly encourage everyone to look up this particular bank and the story behind it, as well as the impact of generational African American wealth. Just a portion of what happened with the Freedmen's Savings Bank. Multiple African Americans placed their money within this bank. And due to risky investments of the persons who were in charge of the bank closed, not returning money to the depositors, resulting in a significant loss of the possibility of generational wealth across African American populations. And thinking that this is significantly different from the recent bank closures that have taken place currently in 2023, where people were able to gain a portion of their monies back. And with this history and these historical mediators noted on this screen during part one, we discussed the long-term effects on the opportunities to build wealth within African American families and the current status of African American wealth in the United States. Now that we have focused on several definitions in regards to finances, as well as historical mediators, a brief overview pulled from part one webinar, and these historical mediators, several of them are still having effects today or taking place in different ways today. Let's begin to explore strategies, financial strategies from a historical figure, and how these strategies were used to promote social justice within the African American community. So here, let's transition to our second poll question. So I'm going to launch this poll. And the question is, how much do you know about Maggie Lena Walker? And you can select one of the following. So the options are a lot, she has an inspirational story, or not much, looking forward to learning more about her, or nothing, I'm not familiar with this name. Okay, so I'll just take a couple more seconds. I see more responses are coming in. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll and I'm going to share the results. Here we go, 9%, wonderful. A lot, she has an inspirational story. Then we have not much, looking forward to learning more, that's 13%. And then I see the majority, 78%, nothing, I am not familiar with this name. So here we're going to go into just more about Maggie Lena Walker. So this is Maggie Lena Walker, 1864 to 1934. The historical figure that we are going to discuss is noted here at the top of your screen, known as Maggie Lena Walker, who was born in 1864 in Richmond, Virginia. So Maggie Walker was born at the time of Civil War, if you recognize that during the dates. She was born in what is referred to as the capital of the Confederacy, Richmond, Virginia. And then she also experienced the time period of when Jim Crow laws were enacted. So, in other words, Maggie Lena Walker lived during a time of slavery, significant depression, as well as the denial of multiple rights to women. Now, what you'll notice on this screen, I listed out several systemic influences, the context that Ms. Walker was living in at the time that were impacting her and the people in her life, as well as the African American population. So I want to note that during this time, she also experienced significant grief and loss regarding the death of her stepfather, where he was found in a body of water. Some identified it as a suicide. However, it is truly believed that it was murder due to this period of Jim Crow laws and enslavement economics and various forms of oppression. So, due to the death of her stepfather, this further plunged the family into the experience of poverty. And also during that time, there were limited opportunities for women, let alone African American women, for career. So Maggie Walker's mother was a laundress, meaning she would basically clean the laundry of persons in power or persons with wealth by hand to help support her family. And her daughter, Maggie, would support her mother in doing so to help enhance the money that would come into the home. And so Maggie's responsibility was to deliver the laundry to various households, returning it back to the homes. And during those deliveries to these households, she was able to observe the social inequities, those social disparities, and the differences in living experiences. And reportedly, those images really stuck with her. They remained with her over time. And in addition to that systemic influence, she lived during a time during significant gender discrimination. You can see that as the last point on this slide. For example, Maggie Walker was trained as a teacher, an educator. However, when she married, the rule was that women who were married could not teach. As a result, she was released from her position. The thought at the time was that when a woman is married, she should be home, take care of her husband, the household, and her family. At this time, even in regards to banking, women couldn't even own their own bank accounts. I don't believe women could hold their own bank accounts until possibly the 1970s. So to learn more about Maggie Lena Walker, I have included resources at the bottom of this slide that you'll be able to access as well. Now, let's go a little bit into what Maggie Lena Walker did to start building her financial literacy knowledge and transitioning that into a tool for social justice. So you see several boxes on this screen. So I'm going to share some information in relation to each one. So let's start with the first one about where she joined a fraternal organization. So as a teenager at approximately the age 14, Ms. Walker joined a fraternal organization that primarily had a significant focus on financial empowerment for African American communities. So this particular organization was called the Independent Order of St. Luke. The financial focus had to do with providing life insurance to African Americans, as well as death insurance to ensure that they had proper and appropriate burials. So while a member of this organization, Ms. Walker transitioned through the ranks. She gained financial education, built knowledge and awareness of the social context of the African American population at the time. So what were their experiences? What were the oppressive barriers that were taking place that was hindering their growth and even contributing to race-related trauma? So through building this awareness of the context realizing the policies that were in place that were creating barriers, she realized the level of discriminatory banking practices. And because there was such discrimination in the banking practices, this decreased the chances of persons who were freed from enslavement to gain independence and to truly be a part of the human rights that were afforded to others. Again, as I mentioned earlier, she would support her mother in regards to cleaning the clothing and returning them to the homes. And as she was returning the clothing to the home, she was able to see those social disparities. Now, African Americans were not permitted to use the major banking institutions for savings, investments, or to gain loans for housing purposes. This is something that Ms. Walker realized. Therefore, she created a plan to promote financial well-being and empowerment amongst African Americans. She had a focus on investing in youth populations. In other words, supporting them in gaining knowledge about how to begin saving and investing at an early age and teaching them how this would affect them and how this would build as they transition into adulthood. She also focused on the recruitment and expansion of the fraternal organization that she was a member of. So through that, she was able to gain more members, not just in Richmond, Virginia, but across the country. So she traveled, she spoke, she encouraged, and she recruited, all with a focus on building financial empowerment and independence amongst African American populations. And in addition to that, she used media, and thinking media at that time was primarily newspapers or word of mouth or something to that extent. But she used media to share about social injustices because these weren't really talked about. Awareness wasn't brought to it. Social injustices, including murder of African Americans in public places, the practice of lynching. So she used a newspaper to provide financial education about savings and investing, how African American populations could build their own means for financial prosperity within their communities, but also to bring awareness to various forms of social injustices that were taking place. So overall, she engaged in multiple efforts, as you can see, again, reflecting on this screen, to promote economic independence for African American communities, as well as women and youth. So this was just a glimpse into how Ms. Walker transitioned her financial literacy knowledge into actions to promote social justice. Now let's get into some of those specifics to place names to the actual actions that she took and what was created. So as you can see, this slide is labeled as outcomes. So several of the outcomes of Ms. Walker's efforts, as well as the efforts of the fraternal organizations and persons within the community and across the country, included the development of the St. Luke Herald in 1902. Now, this was the newspaper I spoke about earlier that was able to bring attention to the social injustices toward African Americans. And it was also used as a form of financial education sharing. Remember the definition of financial education shared earlier, that it is the process through which we acquire the knowledge, skills, and abilities to set our goals and put those goals and action steps into process. And then, this is an important note, in 1903, Ms. Walker was the first African American woman, also identified in many writings as the first woman in the United States to both create and be the president of a bank, which was definitely a significant feat at that time period. As I mentioned, that women generally were not permitted to own their own bank accounts. So this bank was referred to as St. Luke Penny Savings Bank. And when you think of that word penny, that was the intention for people to just even bring in their pennies, because those pennies mattered in growing savings and being able to loan to each other to support their communities. The St. Luke Penny Savings Bank has also been identified as the longest running African American bank in the United States history, lasting up through the 2000s. It was approximately, there are a couple dates noted, 2005 and 2010. So around that period is how long the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank lasted in the United States. So again, this bank created opportunity for African American populations to save and invest their monies, loan to each other to strengthen their communities, promoted financial empowerment, and enhanced the opportunity for building wealth. Next, you can see in 1905, a store was developed, and this store was called St. Luke Emporium. So this was built within the African American community on Broad Street in Richmond, if you are familiar with the Richmond, Virginia area. And all of these efforts, the newspaper, the bank, the store, were forms of programming that transitioned financial literacy into social justice. Magdalena Walker also advocated for women's rights. So in each of these entities, you would see women employed in roles such as clerks, applying their knowledge and skills and building their financial independence. Ms. Walker created many avenues for opportunities. So through these efforts, youth were also able to build their knowledge and gain insight about early financial practices. Some of the other outcomes were that wealth building took place within the community, and there was also increased home ownership because now they could obtain loans for home ownership. There was sustainment of a working class. Again, these are just some of the outcomes of the efforts that Ms. Magdalena Walker engaged in. So now we're just going to take a moment to hear from some of you in this space, and this is where I seek Linda's support. On this slide, we're encouraging you to post in the Q&A section some of your thoughts and observations in response to these questions. And we'll start with this first question. From your observations, how did Maggie Walker develop a personal financial well-being framework? What were her practices? What were her boundaries? So just from what I've shared so far regarding her story and her experience, what did you pick up on? So we'll just wait a few seconds. And Linda, feel welcome to share maybe a couple comments of what you may be seeing in the Q&A.
Sure. We have observation of others, dedicated to change the experience of herself and others, being observant and choosing to act. She sought information about how to elevate her situation from observation of others, education, exposure, one penny at a time. She
Yes.
first noticed what was not there, self-taught and dedicated to educating and empowering her community. And she used education in another way. Tanya says she was assertive, a social change agent. She wasn't stingy with sharing information. Oh, I love her story. She adapted self-awareness at a young age and followed to process. Her mother was an entrepreneur, being a part of a group that supported her education, and she was systematic in her approach. She learned and then applied and taught others and helped them.
Wow. Thank you so much, Linda. I think everyone covered everything I have on these next few slides. My reflections. So that means I won't go too deep into these because I feel like you mentioned them all. Thanks, everyone. Yes, she involved herself in organizations. She transitioned her knowledge. She wasn't stingy with it at all. She sought to help other people grow. She learned how to cut expenses within the organization so she could build these other entities. And she created entities that were mutually reinforcing. The bank, the store, the newspaper, they all supported each other. Thank you, everyone, for those responses. Now let's check in on the next question. So how about this one? Feel free to share your thoughts. From your observations, how did Maggie Walker use skills to promote mental and financial health, whether it was for herself or for her community? So what did you notice that she did? And Linda, when you see comments, feel welcome to share.
Information seeker, advocacy. Educating others on what worked for her. Change agent, taught the youth. She simply provided resources and she networked with major stakeholders. Set a precedent, used the media things people would use to educate the Black population, advocate, resourceful, and innovative, gatekeeper through sharing information about finance, entrepreneur. I think
Wow.
she healed her financial trauma by helping others prepare for financial loss. And then lastly, unafraid to help those others who wouldn't or wanted to keep suppressed. She used what she knew to help others, and she had no fear.
Wow, this is awesome. Again, I feel you all covered what's on my slides. She was a member of First African Baptist Church in Richmond, Virginia. So that's the piece that connected to her faith. Her family home, that's actually a historical site in Richmond, Virginia that people can visit, but there are several generations of her family within that home. So she kept her faith, her family, her group membership very close. She advocated. Again, she targeted populations that she noticed were experiencing social injustices. She transitioned her knowledge into action to collectively improve the situation of African American populations. Excellent, everyone. Let's transition to this last question here. From your observations, how did Maggie Walker develop financial empowerment programs to promote social justice? And I think some of this was addressed in the comments already, but Linda, if you see anything additional posted, feel welcome to let us know.
Mobilization. Anyone?
Okay. If not, I can share, because it does sound like a lot of it was covered in the previous comments, but I have some
Okay.
some listed here on this slide that tie in too. And I think, Linda, you were about to say about advocating, and that may tie into this number 2 on this slide about outreach and collaborations, and certainly being a voice for populations who were experiencing forms of oppression and systemic barriers, right? And creating those informational channels, connecting with spaces and gathering places where people may be, okay? And I really like how she created upward mobility within whatever she experienced, climbing the ranks, etc. She recreated for other people to be able to experience that too, through the newspaper, the bank, and the store. Again, thank you everyone for sharing your observations, and thank you, Linda, for sharing what you see written as well. And just on this slide, and we're getting ready to wrap up in just a couple of minutes, are a few applications how we can take what I call Ms. Walker's financial literacy social justice framework and put it into practice in relation to social work. Consider how you can add financial empowerment components to your social work programs, youth organizations, social work education. how you can create opportunities within your community for people to apply their financial knowledge, for field in social work curriculum. How can you create field-based, finance-based field placements, right? So there are many ways that we can use our financial literacy to promote social justice, to put it into practice. So just a question at the bottom of this slide says, how can you use financial literacy as a social justice tool? Just something for you to ponder. Now, Miss Magdalena Walker was one historical figure, and one historical figure that was incredible to learn about. But I want you to continue your learning beyond this webinar of other historical figures. So I've included two on this slide, Ms. Ernesta Procope and Mr. Alonzo Herndon. So I'm going to let you look up those names to learn more about these two individuals and to explore more about their unique stories. And as you explore more, I would like you to continue to consider these questions that are on the slide about how they each develop their own financial frameworks, how they use their skills to promote mental and financial health, what financial empowerment efforts they implemented, and then consider how the information may be applied to you, your organization, or your community. This is our final polling question. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this. Launching the poll. And the question is, what is the projected median wealth of African American households for 2053? Wow, it's getting filled in pretty quickly. I'll just wait one more second, then I'll close the poll and share the results. And here we go. So here are our results. So it says the majority says 65% is 57,600. We have 1% says 0. So let me hide those results and let me tell you what the reality is in regards to that poll. The actual answer is 0. That is the projection. So the current African American median wealth for a household is the 24,100. That's considered the current. And this is African American median household wealth is showing consistent decline over the years. So if the discriminatory barriers to wealth building are left unaddressed, then the median African American household wealth is reportedly on a path to hit 0 by 2053. So I invite you to learn more about this through the report titled The Road to Wealth, developed by the Institute for Policy Studies and Prosperity Now, to gain further insight. So just with that poll, a question I would like you to ponder is, how will you use your financial literacy knowledge to confront the social injustices and systemic barriers to wealth building, education, and career? Okay. And just very briefly, I would like you to know that every step we take towards promoting financial literacy and using it to confront social injustices is critical. And I just included a few that I'm doing on this screen. I currently am working with St. Joseph's University in Pennsylvania to launch an online MSW program this fall. And fully online increases access to education, but we're also focusing on using a zero cost textbook initiative throughout the program as well, to decrease some of those financial barriers to learning. A second effort through the National Black MBA Association Leaders of Tomorrow program. Next year, I'll be launching a scholarship to support its adolescent members in pursuing higher education. In addition to launching the scholarship, providing Let's Talk About Finances workshops for the youth as well, so they not only receive money, but know how to use it. Other efforts, I do have a current book called Let's Talk About Finances, A Path to Financial Wellness for social work students and graduates. Again, I'm hoping to update that. And then have another book coming soon called The Game Plan, about my promotion and tenure process as a university faculty, taking what I know to support other people in navigating their process. And then another step, there is an upcoming Social Work Wealth Conference. And I'm honored to be part of an amazing team led by Eva Ford, who many of you may be familiar with as Rich Social Worker, bringing this vision into fruition. And the current dates are October 18th through the 20th of this year, with more information coming soon. The intention is to promote financial empowerment among social workers, and then they'll be able to take those skills and better support the people that they are providing services to as well. And last but not least, the Center for Financial Social Work, the opportunity to deliver these webinars and having such a great platform. So I encourage all of you to consider joining this financial health and wellness community. What are some of your next steps in using financial literacy as a social justice tool? So in closing, I just want to say thank you everyone for attending this webinar today. And if you would like to learn more about me or stay in contact, please feel welcome to visit either one of my websites, drveronicahardy.com or veronicahardy.com. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back over to Rita. Hi, Rita.
Hi, that was wonderful. I knew it would be. So before we do Q&A, a few final thoughts. We know that no one chooses to have money problems, but that most people do. But the good news is that no one can or needs to know everything about money, but everyone needs to know certain things about money. And that tends to make finance, personal finance, financial health and wellness less intimidating. Everyone has a relationship with money and with self, and most need healed. Healing your relationship with yourself takes time, honesty, less self-criticism, and more self-love. And healing your relationship with your money begins with your thoughts, feelings, attitudes, values, experiences with money. When we talk about money, what are we really talking about? We're talking about survival, we're talking about safety and security, and we're talking about power, because those who have the money have the power. And Dr. Hardy gave you great examples of how we can work together on financial capability, financial education, health and wellness to empower ourselves and our clients towards greater social justice, social and economic justice. Never stop working to make peace, make friends with your money. And if we want to truly stop raising generation after generation of financially illiterate men and women, we have to prepare our children for the real world by teaching them about money. And we have to make sure to consider that when we're working with clients with overwhelming financial problems and stress, that they understand that debt isn't a death sentence, and we should always choose life. We have a lot of resources at the Center for Financial Social Work. Next month's free webinar is addressing chronic poverty and the high cost of being poor. And then the month after that, in June, understanding the game, and that is on gambling. We have the financial health and wellness professional community, and that's something that Dr. Hardy mentioned and that I'm very excited about. We started it last year, and it is a place for financial professionals, social workers, and others to interact, learn, network, connect, expand client resources, and support each other across diverse client populations. On our website, we have a partner program so that if you refer our program, the colleague you refer it to saves 10% and you earn 10% on that. We have wonderful essays from all of our, well, not all, but some of our graduates. And this year we've used a new model for our certification called Pay What You Can. The cost of the certification has been $695 for several years, but because of the economy, inflation, the many challenges that so many people, including professionals, are struggling with, you can pay whichever of those amounts you can afford. Our students have 6 months to complete the self-study and self-paced certification. It includes all the materials and the financial social work final exam and a beautiful certificate. And there is a 3-year renewal. So we have a few minutes. Linda, do we have any questions?
Well, we do. And Dr. Hardy, there's a question in your next to the last slide. There was a website on there, and we have folks asking for that website again. And while you're thinking about that, another question is, can you post the name of the study on Black wealth that was just referenced?
Yes. So let me get you the name of the study on Black wealth. So the title of that report was The Road to Wealth. And it was developed by the Institute for Policy Studies and Prosperity Now.
Perfect, thank you. And then someone was inquiring about that website that was on your second to last slide.
On the second to last slide, that was my wrap-up slide with the different steps I'm taking. I didn't have a website on that particular slide. I did have the websites on my last slide, which was drveronicahardy.com and veronicahardy.com.
Okay, all right. And to the folks who are asking if we will share the slides, the answer is no. Another question that we got says this: I provide financial coaching, counseling services, and working with minorities. They don't seem to get it, such as savings, paying off debt, obtaining insurance for their children. This is the major stumbling block. What is your suggestion?
I suggest in the beginning of the webinar, I had the definitions on the various slides, and on one slide I had that chart, that image. And I think the information in that chart and that image may be very helpful. When we deliver financial education services, just as what Magdalena Walker did, we have to understand the context that the individuals are in and then respond and deliver that information according to the context. So that's one thing to evaluate. Am I delivering this information that will also be relevant to the context in this person's current situation, as well as engaging the person in assessing their personality and attitudes? One thing I often recommend is to engage people in exploring their personal financial narrative, right? What have been their money experiences, their financial experiences? Has it been for survival? What did they learn from childhood regarding finances? So it's important to get to the root and the underlying meaning sometimes before we get to the actions and the work.
Beautiful.
I'd like to add that the most important thing that we can do is engage the client. It doesn't matter how wonderful our materials are. If it isn't relevant to the client, then it's not worth very much. So our model is education, motivation, inspiration, and ongoing support. And that is what people need to create sustainable long-term financial behavioral health. And it is by connecting them to where they learned about money, what they know about it, who didn't talk about it in their lives. And just clients who are part of any of the current systems we have already been told that they need a budget, the budget, the budget, the budget. Does everyone need a budget? Yes. Does anyone want it? Not really, because they see it as punitive. So let's start with more engaging methodology, and support people to take control of their money so they can gain control of their lives. Thanks.
And as long as we have folks that are still with us, we have another question. What about work with HBCUs, Dr. Hardy?
Oh, that is to me critical and important. I'm working to connect with a current HBCU with their psychology program and working with the students there because, as Rita has mentioned, financial wellness also has to do with our mental wellness too. There are the connections between the two. So definitely working to integrate financial empowerment programs and integrating that throughout the curriculum too is very relevant, I think, in any profession at university. So considering if it could be integrated throughout the curriculum, many universities have what's called like a freshman seminar when the freshmen are originally coming in. That would be a great place to integrate this as well. So I think that would be a strong and necessary and important avenue as well for promoting financial education.
And although this is not a question, I think it's a wonderful way to wrap up. Someone said about Ms. Maggie Lena Walker, this participant wrote, "Thank you for including her story. How did I not know about her? Such an inspiring story."
Oh my goodness. I'm so thankful I had the opportunity to learn about her as well. Again, a lot of this information is just not taught to us. It may not be included in our financial education. And just like in any other platform, it is important to include diversity, the diversity of stories, experiences, ethnicities, and abilities, etc. So whoever we're providing financial education to can make that connection and see themselves in the experiences of others. So I'm glad I was able to honor Ms. Walker and share her story today.
And
Now,
Dr. Hardy, someone is asking if you will resume your podcast.
Oh, I'm hoping to do that soon. So
Okay.
that is definitely something on my to-do list for this year.
Very good.
well, I would like to thank Dr. Hardy for this wonderful, wonderful presentation. I know everyone else is thanking her too, and we hope to get her back in the very near future. She brings just a different perspective and knowledge, and of course, her own special style to her trainings. Thank you so much, Dr. Veronica Hardy.
Good. And I'm hoping and looking forward to being back again. And thank you for the invitations, Rita.
And thank you all for taking time out of your busy days. I'm confident you learned a lot, and I hope to see you back here in the future. All right, take care, everybody. Bye now.